Hey guys, welcome back to Everything in Between. I have a special guest here. Her name is Chelsea. She's in the anxiety group that I got invited into. She's agoraphobic, just like me. And Chelsea, I'm just curious, your earliest memories when anxiety really started for you. You can go back to your childhood, wherever you want.
Okay, so I think my first real memory of anxiety, my first real memory of having a panic attack was in primary school. So I'm not sure what that would be in America, like elementary school maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and my mum always told me, like my mum and dad have always said that I was a nervous kid. I would always be like worrying about whatever. I remember having a kid's book called The Big Bag of Worries, and how if you would keep everything in your mind, this imaginary bag would get bigger and stuff. So I think I've always just been nervous, but the first time was I was we were about to go into class, and I realized, well, I didn't realize at the time that I had swollen glands. So I had like an infection in my throat, but all I knew was that I couldn't swallow. And so I just started like freaking out. I didn't have anything like a water bottle or anything in my packed lunch, and I just remember like completely freaking out. I was running about trying to find someone that had like a bottle of water that I could drink. And from that time I would just always have a bottle of water with me, and if I didn't, I would completely freak out. And I mean, my mum and dad are really good because they knew pretty early on that there was something wrong, and that's when I went to my first experience with counselling.
How old were you when you first went?
Probably would have been maybe 9 years old,
Hmm.
and I was I remember going in and trying to like explain the anxiety without even actually knowing what anxiety was. You know, it would just be like, oh, it's kind of like stage fright. That was the only way that it could describe it, because, you know, you're so young, you don't really know what's going on. All you're knowing is like, if you don't have this comfort item, that suddenly you can't breathe, and you can't swallow, and your chest feels tight and all this kind of stuff. So it was pretty intimidating. But I mean, especially because looking back on it, the counselor was just not great. Because I was one of those kids. I've always been, even when I was a teenager, I hated being spoken to as if I was like a child. And of course, going into going into a counselling experience when you're so young, they're obviously going to speak to you like that. But I hated it, and eventually I faked getting better so that I didn't have to go anymore. So I would just like pretend that I was fine, and then upon leaving primary school and going into high school, so I would be like 11 or 12, it actually just went away, and I didn't deal with panic attacks or anxiety anymore.
When do you
But then it
think?
came back.
Yeah. When do you think it started coming back?
So, do you remember in 2012 when there was that whole conspiracy theory
The world, end of the
that,
world.
yes, oh my god, I remember sitting in the house and I was seeing all this stuff on Facebook, and I just started completely like freaking out. And this wasn't the panic attacks that I had dealt with when I was younger, because I feel like those were the very physical feelings of like you're struggling to breathe, and your chest is tight, you can't swallow, all that kind of stuff. This was my first experience with derealization, and I was screaming and crying. I could just remember my mum hugging me. But after that, I calmed down, and I went on a good few years without ever feeling that again. It was just that one moment of fear, and then it was fine. It didn't come back again until I think I was about 14 or 15 when I had a really bad panic attack like that again.
What happened at 14 or 15?
Well, when I was 14 and 15, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was, drinking and smoking weed, which, I mean, that's pretty standard
Yeah.
in Scotland, especially to get drunk when you're like 12. But, so I was 14. I was with a bunch of my friends. It was nighttime. We were outside, and we were all smoking whatever. And a couple of them had went away. They were going to go and get some other stuff sorted, and I was with someone that I had only just sort of recently met as well. And I can, some of the nights still a blur because it was honestly one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me. I just remember lying back on the grass, and I kind of sat up, and I was like, I'm really sorry, I feel really weird. And I just remember screaming. That's all I can remember is my friend, like, that I barely really knew at that point, just holding me while I was screaming and crying and shaking, just feeling this completely alienated feeling that I'd never felt before. And I remember phoning my sister and being like, please come pick me up, please come pick me up. And going back to her house and just constantly, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but it's like you're like pinching yourself. So I was sitting on her couch and I was like trying to feel for my legs because nothing felt real.
Right.
I just felt absolutely horrendous. And obviously that would have been anxiety and a bad trip. And when I explained it to people at the time, they were like, "Oh yeah, you just sound like you're tripping out pretty bad." But I knew that since that moment, I didn't feel 100%. So a few days later, and bear in mind, like after that experience, I was like, "Whoa, that was really terrifying." But then I just continued on, went to school, went out with my friends again, and then it was one night again. I had that same feeling. I was just sitting with my dad and I completely started freaking out. Nothing felt real. I didn't know where I was, who I was. And it was that bad that my dad actually phoned an ambulance for me. And I went to the hospital. And they kind of obviously confirmed that it was a panic attack, and I knew that at the time. But it was something that I just... I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. As you know, like that sort of feeling is just so intense, and especially when it's your first ever time experiencing it, and you've got no idea what's happening to you. It just threw me off, and yeah, after that, I was just so scared, and I wasn't myself. That was the thing as well. Is like I just wasn't myself. I was in bed all day, just shaking. And really terrified from that experience.
And this is 14 or 15, or this is after that?
Yeah, this is when I was around 14 or 15. This is when my anxiety disorder came into play.
How long have you been agoraphobic, or?
So that would be since I was around 15. So I think that panic attack and that experience of going to the hospital was the beginning, sort of thing.
Was that your worst panic attack that you ever experienced so far, or the first one?
So. Yeah. I think that panic attack was probably the worst. I have had attacks since then that have been like that, the dissociation and the derealization. But for a long time, I didn't even know what that was. So I was really fortunate enough to have like a school that the teachers cared about their students, because I know that a lot of people they aren't blessed with that. But I was already a bit of a troubled kid. I wasn't going to class and stuff like that, but this was different. I wasn't going to class, and I wasn't able to even get on the train, and I wasn't seeing my friends and all that kind of stuff. And they really helped and was speaking to my parents about like, okay, well, let's try and get her into counselling. So that was my next experience with counselling as a teenager. And they had diagnosed me with a severe anxiety disorder and a panic disorder, but I would say this was the beginning of the agoraphobia settling in. Oh, by the way, we call it agoraphobia, and I realised just there that you guys call it agoraphobia.
I could be pronouncing it wrong. I'm not the smartest
No,
person,
I think
but
I think it is like an American way of saying it. It's I've heard that before.
well, there's also arachnophobia, I think, and that's like a fear of spiders.
Oh yeah, usually when I tell people that I'm I know. See, now I can't say
Agoraphobic.
it. When I tell people that I've got agoraphobia, they're like, "Oh, you're really scared of spiders?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm so terrified of spiders, I can't go out." But yeah, so like the place that I went to was called CAMS, so that's like a big thing in the UK. I can't remember what it stands for, but I got given a counsellor there, and you have to speak to the doctors in order to get referred, and I would explain to them the difficulty that I was having with going outside, and one of my teachers would actually drive me to school because my school was quite a distance away from me. Like I would have to get the train and stuff, and I would explain that I would be ready for school on time, and I would just sit down at the train station and watch the trains go by, and that I just couldn't get on them. So a teacher was really nice enough to take me to and from school. They would only have me in for about three subjects and allowed me to, if I needed to leave, just to leave, which was really great. But it seemed like I was like, this isn't anxiety, because I can't go outside. I am really struggling to see my friends. I'm struggling to go out to school, but none of them gave me the diagnosis of agoraphobia. And when I explained to them, like, sometimes I would have those high anxiety moments and those panic attacks. There was something else that was going on. There was that feeling. I would describe it to them as like, if it feels almost as if you're in a dream, that reality is not real, that it's not that you're scared of dying, you feel like you're already dead, and all these kind of feelings. And they would just look at me with a completely blank expression, and that would make me just feel even worse, and being like, okay, well, this is clearly not anxiety that I'm dealing with. And it wasn't until I did my own research online, just like Googling and stuff, and just trying to find out like what was wrong with me, that it showed up, you may have agoraphobia. And I started looking into that, and I was like, wow, this is what I'm experiencing, and clearly I'm not the only person that's ever dealt with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of us.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Oh wait, hold on a little second, I have to let my dog out. Oh. Okay, I'll start from there's a lot of us. That's the thing, was I never knew that this was a thing.
Yeah.
I never knew that there would be other people out there that were dealing with that, because although people talk about depression and anxiety and having that feeling of not being able to leave your bed or not going to see friends for a while, that just wasn't something, that didn't feel like all of it to me. I was like, no, I'm struggling to go out, and I'm fortunate enough that I don't have a social anxiety disorder. Like, I don't fear going out and seeing people, or fear that people look at me or anything like that. And I think that's what complicated it even more for me. And not getting an answer from the doctors, from the therapist, and from the counsellors, that was really intense as well, and made me feel really alienated. So going on my own studies really helped, and actually saying to the doctors, like, here, I think I've got this, and then being like, oh yeah, that makes sense, was not was not the best. And I think, that experience with counselling was not great. And eventually I stopped going. And after that, that was when I had really became housebound. So I would have been around 16, and just not being able to, not even just like I couldn't. That was my dog that just barked, by the way.
That's all right.
um, it wasn't that I wasn't able to live like a teenager. It was the fact that I wasn't able to live a normal life at all. And, just not, even though I had the answers of what was going on, I didn't know how to help myself. And especially with being so young as well. And mental health wasn't, although it was just a few years ago, mental health was not spoken about the way that it is now. And at that point in time, I was really, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed to talk about it, because it's not even as if you're saying, oh yeah, like I get anxious sometimes or I can have panic attacks. It's like I can't leave my house, and the person would say, well, why? And you don't really have an answer. You don't have that trigger. And that really set me into a depression, especially with like the isolation and stuff, because I was always a really outgoing person. I always had like a lot of friends in my life and stuff, and going from that to completely nothing, it was really, really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's really common for people that have anxiety that they also have social anxiety, and I never did either. And I also had to Google my diagnosis. I just I've been seeing a therapist for a little while, but I just recently saw a psychiatrist, and I mean I knew I had it, but luckily he confirmed that it was agoraphobia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd never heard it before, so.
Yeah, it's as I said, like I really was in the dark about it, and especially because the counsellors that I had seen had never even brought that up in passing or anything. They never even gave the example of people with anxiety or depression finding it difficult to leave. They would only ever bring up people that had a social anxiety disorder and avoiding certain places. And for me, I was like, okay, well, I'm not socially anxious and I'm not avoiding certain places. I'm avoiding all places.
Yeah.
Like, I'm finding it difficult to just stand at the front door.
It's possible that you were so well spoken that they didn't really consider it, because, like I said, people with anxiety, most of them, it is a social thing.
Mhm. And I think as well, like, because from the minute that I started to go to counselling and stuff, I was very involved in learning about what was going on with me. So, they would give you like some really good like sheets to take away and like some textbooks and stuff like that. But doing my own research into things as well, it's kind of a bad thing as well, because you would go to speak with a doctor and they would be like, oh, you really know what's going on. And you could probably like I recently had a counsellor say to me, who is a new counsellor, who, by the way, it seems like there's great potential there, but she said to me, like, oh, you could probably teach a class on anxiety management. And because of that, they weren't as helpful as I feel like they could have been.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, you know all the stuff, you're just not doing it. Which is kind of true in a way, but it's like, no, I'm needing help, because I feel like you can know all the right stuff, but
Yep.
it's about putting it into practice. And
my therapist wants me to be a peer support person, and it is weird sometimes when you like you said, you sort of know all the things, all the answers, and when they acknowledge that, it takes away, like, this person's supposed to give me advice, and help me, but if we're equal, how can that be?
yeah, definitely. I mean, when I had I met with like a few different like counsellors and organisations and stuff, and some, as I said, like up until recently, they were all just a complete nightmare, which I felt also kind of played a part in my progress being so up and down, because I would say around like when I was around 17, I had friends in my life that had cars, and so I would be able to go out on a drive with them. And when, like, I remember at one point my sister coming to pick me up in the car, and we went swimming, and my doing my sister-in-law's makeup at my brother's house and stuff, which is all pretty fair distance away and stuff like that. But I remember being able to do that, and now even the thought of that, well, not exactly now, because I'm being more positive and believing in myself. But beforehand, I would say probably about 2017, when I was at my worst with everything. Even just thinking that I could have done that beforehand would make me panic. Um, but that was also like a good bit to do with the fact that the counselors that were in my life were just not great. And that's what I would advise to any of your listeners as well, is like, if you're with a therapist or a counselor who you don't get on with, or you feel that doesn't take you seriously, or that maybe like minimizes your problems, or maybe they're just not listening to you in general or offering you what you need, you just need to cut it, because at the end of the day, their feelings are not, their feelings are not going to be hurt. You can always say, like, I would like to try a different counselor, I would like to try a different therapist. And I never knew that that was available. I thought when you were given a therapist by the doctors or whatever organization, that you had to stick with them. And I wasn't aware that if you weren't comfortable, or you felt like that person just wasn't a good fit for you, that you could change and meet with someone else.
That's funny you say that. Last year I had a good therapist, and I actually was beating my anxiety for a while, and she graduated me. And when I slipped back in, I got a new therapist, but she sucked, and I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, so I just like sat through each session, like not learning anything, and it was terrible. Luckily, she moved away, and I got my old therapist back, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. That's the thing as well, because I mean, over here it's I think all of your like your mental health care is the same as like your physical health care, where you have to like pay for everything. Yeah.
I got the poor man's insurance, so everything's free for me.
Oh, or you need the insurance. Like, well, for us, everything is free. Like, don't need insurance, don't need anything. But with like the mental health systems that are in place, they're not funded. They're understaffed. And obviously, like, it's amazing that we can get all this stuff and not have to pay or rely on any insurance or anything like that. But there is a huge problem with the underfunding, and it played a big part, because for me, especially as a teenager, and having that moment where I did have a lot more freedom and stuff, that was because I had a great counsellor. But then they would have to move to a different location, or the therapy sessions would only last maybe 6 weeks, because they've got such a high demand waiting list as well.
Right.
But I mean, they can't expect to cure you within 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Or within a certain amount of sessions. And eventually I just stopped altogether. But I would say probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago was when I was like, do you know what, I'm ready to start speaking with someone again. And another thing that made counselling really difficult was, of course, the agoraphobic side of things. It was becoming that, again, I couldn't go out, and I couldn't make appointments. I couldn't go to see them. But when I had decided that I was going to try and get involved with counselling again, I was fortunate enough that they offered home visits, and so that they would be able to come out to the house and do work like graded exposure and stuff, which is really helpful. But again, I didn't know that that was an option. There was a lot of not knowing when it came to counselling, and a lot of just being a bit too afraid to ask for certain things as well as the confusion that was going on with, you know, the mental illness itself, which is really difficult.
So you've been housebound since 16 or 19? Or maybe
I
I'm
would say
completely off.
probably. So I was right. Housebound when I was 15. I'd say that I was still able to sort of right. So I was agoraphobic since I was 15. I was still able to sort of go some places, and then I would say the cut-off point was probably when I was 16. 17 or 18 17 I was able to kind of do a few more things, turned 18, and that was that completely gone with.
So you have not left your house since 18, like, or you've tried potentially and failed.
Yeah, so I would say that, for example, like the last time that I went to the shops where I live would have been when I was like 17. So yeah, I've been pretty much housebound. Of course, I you know, I go walks with my dog to the bottom of the street and stuff like that. But COVID's really messed that up. So I would say when I was around 17, 18 was probably the worst that my mental health was, because there was also that influence of depression as well. Which is, I always describe it as like the even uglier sister to anxiety, because usually when someone gets diagnosed with depression, they'll start to experience anxiety symptoms as well. And I feel like when a person gets diagnosed with anxiety, sometimes depression can creep up with it. Because that's definitely what happened with me. So I was not up for challenging anything. I wasn't up for doing anything. I was just like, yeah, this is my life. This is the way it's going to be. What's the point in having hope, sort of thing. That was the influence that depression had on me, which of course took a huge leap with my agoraphobia. So there wasn't even, you know, I wasn't challenging it either at the time as well. I was just accepting, and I wouldn't say that I was comfortable with it. I don't think I've ever been comfortable with being housebound or wanting to, or just being like, okay, well, this is my safe place and I don't want to leave. I've never been like that. I've always been uncomfortably comfortable, or uncomfortable with the comfortable sort of thing.
I mean, we're social, you know. We don't have that social anxiety. We want to be out in the world.
Yeah, that's the big thing as well. I think was losing friends, and obviously you don't really see much family, and you know, for a long time, you know, the people in my life, they really didn't understand it, and they were, you know, open about, you know, we've obviously all got a great relationship now and able to have that conversation of like, oh, I thought you were just acting it, sort of thing. Because there was that just not understanding, and I think that's also something that's really changing now as well, with just the way that we are more talking about mental health and being more open and honest, is that there's, you know, people are starting to listen more.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really made a big help. But you know, during that time, it for anyone that had never ever dealt with agoraphobia, you would just think that, you know, it's someone just at it. They're probably lazy. They don't want to go out. They're quite comfortable to stay in the house. They enjoy it, sort of thing.
Yeah, because if you can't leave your house, you're too afraid to leave your house. You have to somehow stimulate your brain, or you're gonna go crazy. So you often see, like me, I'll play video games or watch shows and sit on the couch, and that is what the visual of a lazy person would do.
Yeah.
You mentioned that everyone around there takes trains. When's the last time you were in a car?
Oh, the last time I was in a car, I had a very bad experience. So I think that was just around the time that I met my boyfriend. So I would have been 21. So that would maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was with a friend who is one of my best friends. I love him dearly, but at the time, and he's very open and honest about this now, at the time he just didn't see it as something serious. He hadn't really dealt with anxiety before. He never had a panic attack, so his sort of thing was, I'll just go out. If you panic, just get through it. Like, you just need to dive in. That's what he would say. He would be like, you just need to dive right into it and just deal with it when it happens, sort of thing. And I said to, he was kind of saying to me, like, why don't we just go and sit in the car? And I was like, okay, well, just don't drive. Because I was able to do that, like, sometimes with some of my friends or like my sister or my sister-in-law or my brother, just be able to, like, sit in the car outside. And, that was a push for me, to not be even in the garden. But usually they would let me hold their keys and stuff like that because I mean, you can trust a person, but your anxiety will not. But I was sitting with him in the car, and he was like, "Why don't we just go for a drive around the block?" And so I was like, "Okay, like we can try it, but just when I say to turn back," and he did not turn back.
That is, I've been there before, and that's a very scary experience.
Yeah, people, I mean, there's a lot of situations and times and certain things that doing that sort of thing is the right thing to do, right? Where you just kind of like dive in completely into something and face the fear and just roll with it. Like, there's plenty of people that have probably done that and found success in that, but it is absolutely not for everyone, because cut to me, like, being in this car screaming kicking, threatening to take the wheel and all that stuff. Yep. And like, it's just, and traumatizing me from that experience of being like, oh my god, I cannot trust anyone. Yep. Because it might just turn around. And obviously, I mean, he is a lot more understanding of it now, after him seeing me in that state and knowing that it's very real, not to do that. But that was probably the last time that I was in a car. As I've said, like, my dad doesn't drive, my boyfriend doesn't drive. It's, because public transport's everywhere here. Like, you just get a bus and get a train, there's nothing of it. And I know, like,
nothing of it, huh?
Yeah, well, not for me.
Nothing of it.
Not for me, honest. But I think that's the thing as well, is like, the public transport issue is a lot more intense. I think because it's, if you're in a car with someone, you can ask them to turn round, and if they're nice, they will. But if you're on, like, a train, there's no stopping until you're at that platform.
Right.
And I think that was a huge thing for me, especially going to high school. I was like, when I'm on this train, I am stuck. The doors are closed, and that's me. Mm-hmm. Like, 100. And that's obviously what anxiety is all about. Is like, you want to be in control, and that fear is not being in control of the surroundings and stuff. So I would eventually like to be able to get in the car again, because I remember at the time that was a really powerful thing for me, to be able to just get in the car and go to the shops. And I think the thing that was in the back of my mind was like, I can just quickly escape. It's not the same as walking, where, if I was to walk to the shops right now, it would probably only be like maybe 9 minutes of a walk, but when you're agoraphobic, that's 2 hours.
How long of a bike ride would that be?
I don't actually know.
Maybe.
That's something I've wondered as well about, like a bike. I'm wondering if maybe because it's that physical exercise, is that something that you've noticed about yourself? Is like the sort of being physically fit has been affected by the anxiety or the
I mean,
agoraphobia?
definitely I don't exercise as much. I'm usually not moving, so my body is definitely, not used to moving. So if I were to move, especially out there in the danger,
Yeah.
it could go either way.
Yeah, that's something that I'd really, really noticed about myself, which is why I guess I kind of glorify the idea of having a car, because as I said, like it's quick. You're back sort of in a zone that's similar to a house. I guess you're not exactly outside,
Right.
and it's a quick way back if you need to, because when I've been going out with Sky and stuff, there has been moments where that panic hits, and as of right now, hopefully not a few weeks time, being optimistic. um I when fight or flight hits, I flight, and so that means me physically running, and that's one of the first things I noticed when I started to get out and about again, well, trying to go for walks and stuff, was like the pain of my legs and my thighs. I was like, this is also something that I'm going to need to prepare for as well, is like getting physically fit again, because sitting in the house only taking maybe a couple of steps a day, to then
Yeah.
you're not only mentally preparing yourself, but you have to kind of physically prepare yourself as well, which I feel is something that we don't really think about, because it's all just a mental struggle. But when you start to go out for walks and stuff, you realize that your physical health has been impacted by it as well.
Yeah, I definitely need to start working out before I face my demons.
I always say that I'm gonna never do it.
Yeah, I drink soda all day, smoke cigarettes, and I'm like, I'm gonna drink water, and I grab a water bottle, I hold it, and I go right back to the soda. But sorry, I paused for so long that I'm probably gonna cut that out because my brain farted right there.
I thought you were getting ready to ask like a question.
I was, but my brain farted.
You gotta keep it in now.
Well, yeah, I'll be cutting from here until when I do ask the question, but maybe I'll keep it in. It'll be funny. No.
No, keep it. It's a realism.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at my note because I've been writing down stuff. They're not in the list of like, they're not numbered to when I want to ask them, if that makes sense. I think the next thing I was gonna ask, it's funny, as I say this, I still don't know what I'm gonna I'm just trying to like keep it going, I think the next thing I was gonna ask, I still don't know. I just think that it's gonna come. You know what I'm saying? Oh, so I won't get into a car at all, unless my wife or my mom is like not in a bad mood. Like if they're upset, I'll wait. I'll wait for hours. I don't care. I'm not getting in the car if they're upset, because I don't know. I've had situations where I want them to turn around or whatever, and they don't listen, and I freak out. So like, everyone's got to be chilling when I get in the car. I'm assuming by now your dad knows you're agoraphobic, right?
Oh yeah, he's been the one that has been there for the entire thing. And yeah, he's just been here for the whole ride basically, and really took care of me through all of the most difficult moments. And I think to myself, there is a lot of guilt I suppose with mental health, you're always kind of thinking that you're a burden and things like that, and especially when you do go through that whether it's a phase of depression or depressive episodes, or whether you're diagnosed with it, it does kind of cross your mind that those kind of hard thoughts. And I think of my dad, and I think to myself, like, if I had a child that was struggling so much, like, that would be really upsetting. But I mean, is always so great. Like, even when he sees that I'm having those bad days and stuff, I mean, I just go in and speak with him, and the first thing that he does is just make me laugh. And he's never ever just like dismissed my problem. He was never just like, "Oh, just go out, just get out of the house, just go and go and do it," because a lot of people can be so dismissive to us that suffer with it. But he's always just been understanding, and tried to give me that push, but also never been harsh with me.
Do you think you trust? Is there anyone you trust to get into their car, or that trust is gone?
It has been difficult. I'd say that I haven't been able to go for like a drive, but I have been able to sit in the car with my brother and with my sister-in-law and with my sister. So I think I can sit in the car, but whether or not I'd be able to let them drive is a different thing.
Do you think because of what your friend did, you just don't trust
Oh yeah.
anyone to like turn around when
Yeah.
you need them to?
Yeah, because beforehand, the friend that I had in my life, I mean, we would be, and I probably shouldn't say this, but it's fine. We would be like on the motorway, and I'd be like, I'm having a panic attack, and he would like do a U-turn and turn back just to get me back to the house, sort of like speed a little bit as a citizen moving. What are they gonna do now? Put me on house arrest? But yeah, like he would go out of his way to make sure that I was back, and that I was safe, and that was like my first experience of not. I don't want him to listen to this and feel like he's traumatized. But I mean, there's a lot of that as well, where you can trust the person, but your anxiety might not. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah. I mean, I know my mom isn't, or my wife isn't gonna crash the car, or I know that they understand my anxiety, but there's a part of me that like I said, I won't get in the car unless they're in a good mood.
yeah, like it's crazy because I mean, it really is that whole case of like you could like someone, but your your anxiety doesn't, and that sort of thing,
I check
which
every
is
drink. Like if I leave a drink
oh
somewhere, I'm
yeah.
done. It's over. I'm not drinking anymore. If I walked out of the room without my drink and I come back to it, someone poisoned me for sure, and I'm not drinking it.
Yeah, my thing with food and drink is that like I always worry that I'm allergic to stuff, even though I know that I'm not.
Hmm.
So that's always like my fear. Even if I try like a different brand of something, I'm like, I never really get that. But then again, I suppose at the same time, I wouldn't really let anybody cook for me other than my dad or my boyfriend.
Sometimes
I'd
if
be,
I get a headache and I take like Tylenol or ibuprofen, if I accidentally think I took more than one or I didn't take one like at the right times, I'll throw up
yeah.
on purpose.
Oh wow.
I don't trust it. I don't know. Like I'm sensitive to everything. I think everything's gonna kill me. Like
Have-
like
Are
earlier
you quite
today
good
I
with taking
was.
medicine?
What'd you say?
Are you good with like taking medicine and
The only
stuff?
thing I'll really take is Tylenol if I'm having a
Mhm.
terrible headache.
Mhm.
Like earlier
A lot.
today, I was sorry I keep cutting you off. I'm just gonna finish
No,
it.
no, it's fine. You go.
Um,
It's me. It's being
I
annoying.
I was taking a shower, and every time I put shampoo in my head, I'm just like it's gonna seep into my brain. I'm gonna drown because I'm gonna need to breathe, and then like the moment that I'm gonna have to breathe, water's gonna be right there, and I'm gonna like
Mm.
breathe it in, and I don't know. So there's a
Oh,
lot of moments that
the shower and the bath, that's something that I've realized is a can be a problem with people that are agoraphobic as well. I think it's that, like, it is that whole escape thing again, because I suppose if you're in the bath or you're in the shower, especially when you're washing your hair, you have to make sure that you have all the shampoo and conditioner out of your hair. And I think what I've noticed, especially from talking with other people in the group chats and stuff, is like that can be a really intense. I mean, there was someone that had posted on the group that we're both in that they hadn't. This was the first time that they had showered in a few weeks because of that fear. And, I know myself that, like, I think it's like if the bath's too warm or it's like a certain time of the day and stuff, like it can be a kind of nerve wracking experience, which is really strange, you know.
yeah, I only shower when my wife's home because I feel like if she wasn't home, my if I especially if I shampoo in my hair or if I have soap on my body, I gotta get that off. I gotta dry off. I
Yeah,
gotta find my
yeah,
phone, and then I can call 911 or whatever I gotta do. Whatever barriers are like keeping me from safe freak me out.
yeah, yeah. 100%. That is definitely what it is. I mean, there was a. Oh, I forgot to mention this. All this shit that I've been talking, and I forgot to mention this. There was a while where I was restricted to just my room,
Me too. Yeah.
and I remember. And here's the thing, like, I'm always very open about my stuff, because I feel like if you're open about your mental struggles, it allows people to be open with their struggles, because and that's something I've experienced recently from being able to go for walks for the past, like, 3 years now, and speaking with other people. Like, everyone's got something going on, everyone's got an irrational fear or something that they can't do, or something like that. And when I tell people, like, yeah, I used to have to, like, speed into the bathroom, fill up a basin of water, run back in, and, like, wash my hair in my room. And when you tell that story, like, I feel like people who perhaps aren't so open, that would be, like, humiliating for them to speak about. But when you get over that, like, and you're like, yeah, do you know what? I was so bad at one point that I was like, if I wanted to get something to eat, I would have to, like, run into the kitchen, run back into my room, and all that
Yep.
stuff. Like, I'm gonna sneeze. Wait, hold on. Oh no. Oh, bless me. I thought I lost it there. That's why I said oh
Bless
no.
me.
I wasn't scared of sneezing. um, but, like, it kind of shows that person, like, where you've been, and it also gives them the opportunity to be really open about what they go through. And I think that, as well as, like, taking care of yourself when you're agoraphobic, can be kind of difficult as well. Like, there's a lot of people that talk about the fact that they don't eat during the day, or, like, cooking has become a really hard task for them. Just keeping up with personal hygiene, doing, like, normal things like brushing their hair. I'm really glad that I was never to that point, but at the same time, I was restricted to my room.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy to think about, because, as I just said there, like, I completely forgot, with all the shit I've been talking, all the much I've been rambling on. Like, there was that point where it was that bad.
So you've gotten better. You've improved. I had a bottle. I was stuck in my bed and I had a bottle to go to the bathroom in, and yeah, that probably sounds gross, like you said, to a lot of people, but you have to understand, people, we were all babies pooping and throwing up on ourselves, so we get clean eventually. But I
But
mean,
that's just the reality of the situation, though.
yeah,
Because, as I said, I used to be, like, really embarrassed about everything. I wouldn't want to talk about it. But it just got to that point where I was like, do you know what? Like, fuck it. I could talk to, like, a person at the bus stop, if I was ever at the bus stop,
yeah,
about all this stuff, because everyone's got something embarrassing. They've got something like everyone has something, and when you start being open about your stuff, they start being open with theirs, and the more communication, I mean, that's how we're talking about like mental health, because like if you think about it, like before I was born, I don't think they would do I don't think they would talk about that. I mean, if you think about it, it was not even that long ago that people would be in a mental asylum, like locked away, or just having anxiety, or for just being overtired and stuff like that, you know. So we have come a long way, I guess, in the realms of society, but that's only possible the more that you speak about things, and the more things become a bit more normal.
Yeah, I think being open, especially to other people, like you said, everyone has their things, and I'm sure that they're sitting in their room or whenever they feel bad about all the stuff that's wrong with them, but
Oh,
you can make it easier on them, or at least they don't feel as bad. We can all sort of relate with our irrational fears and thoughts. And I had another question for you, and I'm wondering, when is the last time you think you tried to go to the train? I'm assuming, you sit in the car or whatever. When's the last time you actually tried to go somewhere? And what made you turn back? Like, I know that you set out to go on walks, but in your mind, you're probably like, I'm not going to go that far. Do you know when the
yeah.
last time you thought, I'm actually going somewhere? Or that last panic attack, you have yet to try that?
Honestly, I can't even remember when the last time that was, where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go out
Do you think
and I'm
there's
gonna go to this place.
do you think there's a chance that your brother or your sister, you would trust them to be like, hey guys, I've been agoraphobic for a long time. This
Mm.
is a 9-minute walk. It's probably like a 3-minute drive. If I say we need to go, we need to go. Do you think you could ever tell them that and trust that they would do it and feel comfortable enough to go to the stores that are potentially 3 minutes away from your house?
Hmm.
I mean, for what I do is I have two safe places. I got my mom's and my house, and it's 5 minutes away. And yeah, I panic sometimes in that car, and it sucks. But
Yeah.
I put on my headphones. At first, I try to sit up, but I have like motivational YouTube videos ready to play, and like I'm not
Mm.
listening to them yet. So if I start to panic, I'll lay down. If I start to panic more, I'll start playing the video. And if I start to
Mm.
panic more, I have my cold water bottle with me. I'll start drinking it. But by the time I've gone through all the steps, because when you start at step
Mm.
one, you have all these backup plans. By the time you get to the last backup plan, you're probably home. So I wonder if that
Mm.
would be a possibility for you.
I think I've just not had that experience yet. Like I've kind of come to understand like my my boundaries, and I think that's why it's not even been on my mind to like try something like that, because I've through like my counseling and my therapy and stuff, they've really kind of honed it in on me that it's all about baby steps. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about setting small goals. So,
No, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
I think the last time that I had really set a goal that I was completely out of my comfort zone and really wanted to do was, um, it was my yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was with my boyfriend and his birthday. So this was 2019. So this would be coming into 2020, and that's when the pandemic happened. So it was before all this, and I was like really planning to go to. It's like one of the places that I had showed you actually. that's fairly close, and that was planning on going in and having a meal with them. And I was like thinking and planning all the ways that I would sort of practice it. And that was probably the first time in quite a while, and unfortunately the last time that I'd ever like set out a plan that was like way without my comfort zone, and something that I wanted to just sort of like practice for and get ready for. But that was the thing with the coronavirus, and that playing a big part. And the sorry, my dad just walked in. He saw me pull the face and walk back in. um, that played a huge part in the dive of my progression with going out, because I had got to that point. So it was around April in 2019 when I kind of had that epiphany moment where I was like, I need to stop relying on therapy or the people around me. I need to start doing this by myself, and I need to start just like, and that's really when I started to go out on walks with Sky. And I mean, you can actually see the progression in her as well, because from being housebound and only being out in the garden, I had a very, what is it they call them, chunky dogs.
Chunky dogs.
Yeah, so she was probably like the size of a pillow. I had said to myself that I wanted to start going for walks, and I would go out with her. And the great thing about having a dog is like you can just turn around at any time. Nobody's gonna look at you, because at that point I was a bit on edge about like, if I'm just walking down the street doing nothing, then people are gonna be like, okay, what drugs is she on?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so like I thought to myself, right, I'm gonna go out with Sky. And like my dad started to come walks with me, and then of course I met my boyfriend, and that was another big motivation to be able to, because he gets the train to come and see me, and it was wanting to like go down and meet him. And I would go for walks with him, and although it was still very close by to my house, it's probably, I don't know, maybe like 6 minutes of a distance, but like being out in that time, being able to go to anywhere and just kind of stop and have a conversation and let the dog sniff around. It wasn't like, okay, we're going here and we're going back and it needs to be in with this sort of time. Like that was really great, and that was the first time that I was the one that was doing everything for myself. I wasn't relying on anybody else. And then when the pandemic came around, it was like suddenly everyone was like, Chelsea, it's good to get out of the house. It's good to get out of the house. Like, yeah, you need to leave. You need to go out and enjoy yourself. And to everyone being like, you have to stay indoors or you will die.
And you're like, yeah, that's what I've been saying all along.
Just being like, okay, we need to stay in all the time, and not being able to see people. And then you've got that, which is now like a normal fear of this virus that seems to just be taking everyone out, and you're not getting to see like your therapist, you're not getting to see like your support system. So obviously not being able to see him, not being able to see one of my best friends who is also one of my safe people as well, like not being able to have him come over. And my dad was working in a care home during the pandemic, and there was just so much of regular life that was being taken away from everyone else. And obviously that was the life that we had been living as agoraphobic people, not being able to see your loved ones whenever you wanted to, not being able to go to the shops, being filled with anxiety all the time, not being able to go out. These were things that we had already experienced but was happening to the rest of the world. And of course that's just going to amplify for us.
Yeah.
And it really took like a real hold of my progression as well, because suddenly the goals that I had set of going to a restaurant with him down the road, or going on a bus, because there wasn't any public transport. I mean, we had like a really, really hard lockdown, and I know it was like different and different countries and stuff, but we were like really intense, being told, you know, to basically just not go out unless you absolutely had to, and trains being cancelled and all that kind of stuff. Like everything that was an option suddenly wasn't, and that played a huge part in me really declining, because when I look through like the pictures and stuff, like I was able to go to the park, and I was able to just be a lot more, still restricted, still heavily restricted, but had a bit more freedom. And then a pandemic happens. It's so frustrating. And this was around the time where I was really fortunate enough to have a good counsellor, and having to put that completely on hold and really not have any of the support was such a massive blow. And like starting to just kind of get back to normal after the pandemic, and then have a few things like normal life stressors happen, it has really taken a dive. But I mean, as I've said to you before, like I've still been going a walk every day, and although my comfort zone has shrunk, I'm still I'm getting ready to blow that bitch back home. And meeting with this new counsellor, I'm really hoping that goes well. But I think even without it, just I got to do it. I'm really fortunate that I have good neighbours as well who kind of look out for me, and that's only possible that I met them because I was going for walks, and because I was open about my situation. I was open about the struggles, and having them ask me questions and answer them truthfully, not sugarcoat it. I do obviously like, self-deprecating humor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And kind of like laugh about stuff and whatever else. But I think just not sugarcoating it and being like, yeah, you know what, I've got this wrong with me. and just being, because as I said, like I've met these people because I was open and honest, and because I was also just trying to be out and about with agoraphobia. And yeah, I think because I've been open as well with my family as well. Like my family are way more understanding now, because I've just been like, okay, here it is. This is what goes on. I don't know why it happens, because I'm yet to kind of explore what the actual initial trigger is about going out. But just being like, I want to go out, I can, and I would appreciate your help. And that has really had a part to play in the fact that I'm still going, and that I'm still, keeping the hope.
Well, if you don't mind, I may be able to psychoanalyze you right now. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. I don't know. I'm kind of, not that smart. But it sounds like when you were younger, you said that it was hard to swallow, and you didn't have a bottle of water, and you thought you couldn't breathe. I've definitely had that happen too recently, where I thought I couldn't swallow. I thought I couldn't breathe, and I had nothing to drink, and I was freaking out. So it sounds like you, thought you were dying, and you had a traumatic experience of dying and not being able to, alleviate that with the bottle of water, which, if you would have been able to swallow that, you would have realized that you can swallow and that you are breathing. And, I'm sure every other panic attack, helped fuel your fear. Also, I know that the cure to anxiety or to agoraphobia is to face your fear, but with confidence. Like you said, I'm not putting it on your friend either, but when you trusted him to not drive away or to turn back, you lost the trust. We need to feel comfortable and okay and good when we try to face our fears. If it's ever out of our, like you said, control, control is a big part of it. And I think that the only way me and you can do it is to find multiple things that we know calm us down. So when we do go face our fear, we have plan A, plan B, plan C, and we can also leave if we need to, if all else fails. I'm curious, since you are housebound now, you wake up, what is the day in the life of Chelsea? You don't go anywhere, so...
You know, that's something that, like, my family and my friends would ask me during the pandemic. Obviously, they were
They're like, give me
experienced.
some advice.
Yeah, they're like, what do you do? So I think, you know, especially if you're more of an outgoing person, not having anyone to speak to can, you know, you just feel so lonely and you feel so upset. And one of the things that's really helped me out with that is having a PlayStation. But I don't like to spend all my day on the PlayStation. I think that would probably drive me up the wall. So for me, a big thing that I do is I like to do something productive during the day. So like tidying up was a big thing that kind of helped me feel normal, because you know everyone has to get up and have responsibilities. I think also having structure in your day, you know, you can have like a couple of days where you don't really do much, but you have to find hobbies, you have to find things that are fulfilling to you. So for me, you know, some of the things that I enjoy is like gaming, and so having a PlayStation has really helped. It's a great distractor. I like playing in makeup, even though I'm not 100% at it. And you know, having Sky, looking after her, making sure that she's okay, going for a walk with her, um, making sure that I'm not spending all my time in my room as well. So like going and sitting through my dad. As I said, like doing something productive, like tidying up, making sure that your space is clear is a really important thing. Speaking with my neighbours, also having, you know, having my boyfriend coming up to visit me and spending time with him, spending time with my friends, being on um like group calls and stuff like that, or being in the party on PlayStation as well. You know, you find stuff to do. And I think at first, when I was first diagnosed, when I was first going through with it, it would, you know, I didn't even have a phone with internet. You know, we didn't have Wi-Fi in the house, so it really was just like sitting staring at four walls. But especially now, we've got access to so much, like so much on the internet, so much on YouTube as well. You know, like you always find something to do, reading, writing, doing something creative, you know, because if you don't have anything to sort of fill your day, you don't have any hobbies or anything, you're going to drive yourself insane. And I think that's one thing that I kind of tell other people, because they're like, okay, so do you just stay in bed all day? And I'm like, absolutely not. You know, you'll find something to do, because I mean, I think if I was to do that, if I was to have spent 10 years just lying in my bed, that I would probably
You'd be
actually
dead.
be this. Yeah, I'd be dead. I'd be like the size of my room as well. If I'm just eating and lying in bed all day, you know. I think as well, you know, going for walks with Sky has become part of my routine. It's become regular for me.
Thank God
To
for the internet. Yeah,
Oh
we
yeah,
would have already lost our minds by now.
no, 100%. I think that was the thing as well. Was like having YouTube, having, I mean, I don't have TikTok, but I know that a lot of people use it.
You should get one.
Like, and oh, I
It's
don't
entertaining.
know.
I mean,
know.
I thought it was for little kids, but there's literally videos about every sort of thing ever. I'm on there. You can look at my
Yeah.
videos.
Having online communities as well is really important. That was something that really helped me. Was probably actually not a good one.
Wait, what? What wasn't good?
I'm talking about like online communities and stuff, like people that you've got similar interests. But I was not speaking to good people for a while. So I was in You know, like true crime and stuff.
You
I
guys,
was
you
like,
talking to murderers or something?
no, not talking to murderers, but just talking to,
About murder? Oh, this murder is
yeah,
so good. I
yeah,
want to. I wish I could do
yeah.
that.
It's probably not the best thing if you deal with mental health.
Are you, are you guys like, if my boyfriend messes up, I know exactly what to do?
No, but I mean, at the same time, you know, like speaking with those people, you would meet so many interesting people, and you know, especially you've got to be careful with who you're talking to
Yeah.
online. Though that's the thing. I mean, that's something that we've experienced in this group.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
You know.
You just gotta be careful.
Yeah, but like, I mean, you can find communities of people for like everything. So when I got Sky, when I took Sky in, my little French bulldog, speaking with other people that have French bulldogs was really cool. As I said, like speaking to people about like true crime and discussing like the psychology of it, you know, that was really interesting to speak to those people and like finding out, you know, why they're into it and stuff like that, or like what's their favorite cases, and you know, even like art communities and stuff like that. There's so much online to keep you stimulated, but you can't get absorbed in it at the same time because you know you can't lose yourself in the online world, because then you'll just want to stay there. And I think that was like an important thing as well. Is like, yeah, I can meet all these people online, and it's great to meet them, but you still got to have a life in real life as well. And I think that's why I don't spend all the time like on the PlayStation and stuff, even though it's like really fun. You know, you can't spend all day being completely immersed in that. You've got to have your own life, people in your life, in real life, that love you, and having plans with them, and doing stuff like, for me especially the past 2 years, I've been really into gardening. um and that was something, you know, I'm blessed enough to have like a big front garden. And I said to my dad, like, I wish we had like some flowers and stuff, and that has been really really great as well, because like gardening in general is so peaceful. Having like a sanctuary with all the like flowers and all that stuff, being surrounded by bright stuff and nature, especially for people like us that struggle
Nice.
with going out. Yeah, like it's it's something that really brightens your day as well. Like, and it's a creative outlet as well, and you're getting to be out, and sometimes it's distracting as well. You're too busy thinking about what you're planting and how good it's going to look and all that, that it really just takes your mind off it. And as I said, you know, when I was in speaking with like the online communities and stuff, and speaking to depressing people and all that kind of stuff, and just being like immersed online, you know, and being in a dark place mentally as well, when I was out and began to do the gardening. And it was it was such a turnaround. You know, it was good because I was bonding with my dad during that experience, and you know, getting to be excited and like show my boyfriend, like, look, oh, this is the plants that have came up this year and all that kind of stuff. Like, it gives you something to look forward to as well. And I feel like that's, you know, physical activity as well, like 100%. If you're listening to this, get into your garden.
That does sound
It's
nice.
gonna,
Now I want a garden, so.
yeah, honestly, I mean, I never used to care about that stuff. I was never like, I was never girly when I was wee. I was always like a bit more of a boy. Like, it would not be into stuff like, oh, nice flowers, like that sort of thing. But honestly, like, especially like when you're speaking with your neighbors and stuff like that, and they're looking around your garden and they're like, oh, this looks amazing, and you get to look at theirs, like, honestly, it's such a wholesome thing to get into as well. And as I said, it just brightens up your day, even if it's like all of it's just like greenery and stuff like that. I feel like it's important to be around nature when you're kind of you're not able to fully, to have your own little sanctuary and be in your safe space, even to get like house plants or something like that. I think it's just like, it's good vibes.
Do you have any good pictures of your garden? I've never seen it.
Oh hell yeah!
I think that could be
definitely
I think that could be the thumbnail to this. I was wondering, is there anything that actually helps you with panic itself? Like, I know distractions and you have your social, but is there anything that, like, when you're starting to feel anxious, you go do, or?
So I think, as of the current moment, and you'll know because you've comforted me during anxiety moments. It's hard to say. I don't really have a set technique yet, other than distraction. But that's also something that I'm gonna learn. For a lot of people, and I definitely have done this as well, for those moments where you do go through derealizations, grounding techniques are really, really good. So that's when you like count 5 things that you see, then 4 things you can touch and taste and smell. Like it's being engaged with your senses. It can really help you feel normal again. It can calm you down. Affirmations as well. I wasn't really interested in affirmations or anything like that, and it wasn't until I was in a group chat with some girls that she was going through like a high anxiety moment, and so was I, and I just sent a voice recording of being like, listen, we are both gonna be okay. We are all right. We might be a bit nervous right now, but we're going to be calm. We're going to take some deep breaths. And even just kind of saying that out loud made me feel a lot calmer. And so I think like affirmations, self-soothing as well, sort of techniques are definitely something. It's just, for me, I'm not putting them into practice yet because I'm so feared. I'm scared of the fear.
Yeah.
And anything is almost like, have you ever, when you've been to counselling, have you ever been told of like sort of visualizing your anxiety or making it like a person?
Someone told me to picture it as if it was on a TV and small, but not a person.
Well, for me, I have 2 different ones. So my anxiety, his name is Devon because it's like devil. And so, like, my dad, if I would go through and say to my dad that I was anxious, he'd be like, fuck off, Devon. But another one that's in, so and this has only been for like maybe the past 2 years, I deal with intrusive thoughts. Do you ever have those?
Remind me. I think I know what you're talking about, but my brain's not
So
working.
it's those like thoughts that come completely out of nowhere.
But you don't agree with? They're like bad thoughts.
Yeah, like they'll just try and ruin your date. For me, it's almost like a Jessica Rabbit sort of figure. It's like seductive and seductive. She doesn't walk into the room. She kind of sways her hips as she comes and sits down and goes,
fuck some shit
yeah,
up.
Yeah, she sits down and she looks at you and she just goes, everyone around you hates you.
Yeah, judging.
I always like visualize it like that, and that makes me laugh, which then takes it away. But for the anxiety side of things, like I just imagine this being that is absolutely huge, and I have just been cowering away from him. But
it's funny you say that. I have the same exact thing now that I think about it, but I literally just pictured death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with the black hood and the scythe, the whole thing. He's after me.
Yeah, it's just like this big evil bastard that just it becomes, and this is the thing which I recommend anyone who's listening you don't do. You need to tackle him, because if you cower away from him constantly, he's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have been doing as of recently, where I haven't just been pushing myself. And it's been a very conflicting thing as well, because I've never been that type of person. Like, I'm always someone that can stand up and shout if needed. Like, if if someone was like rude to me, I would never be the kind of person to be like, oh, okay, yes. I'd be like, no, who the fuck do you think you're talking to, sort of way.
Yep.
And I'm not able to do that as of yet with Mr. Anxiety, and that's what's made it big. It's like you're scared to challenge him.
Well, the
but
thing is it's you.
yeah, that's what's so annoying
It's
about
like
it as well.
the polar opposite of everything you are. It knows everything you think. It's you. It's the
Yeah.
hardest fight you'll ever have to fight, but you will have to fight him or her, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, whatever demon spawn.
Sometimes I look in the mirror right in my eyes and I talk to it, you know, like I'm feeling the fear and like I know it's me. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I feel that's the thing that's really frustrating about it as well, is that you're able to have the rational thoughts. You have the understanding of what anxiety is, that the sort of primal thing of fight or flight. You'll completely understand all the physical sensations that are happening to you, the mental, like everything that you're going through, but yet it's still there. You know, it's not like it's a physical injury where if you were like to fall down on the pavement, you would put like a plaster or a band-aid over the cut and that's it. It's a physical thing, and it's much more complicated, and I think that's a big reason that people don't understand.
You have to outsmart yourself.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
It's very
And
hard
it's like
to do.
it's not like you're completely clueless and you're like, I don't know what's going on with me, and I'm just not going to listen to anybody who tells me nothing. It's
I know
so
exactly
much deeper.
what's wrong with me, and I still can't do it.
Yeah. It's so frustrating, Mark. And you know, it comes to that point where you meet other people that go through the same thing, and your heart just goes out to them because you're like, I know.
Especially if they're not aware. Like, there's steps, and the first step is finding out you're not actually dying and it's anxiety. It's a long path to get to where we are. Like, we're ready for the fight. We're just gearing up, and you know, we're afraid and we're kind of waiting a little bit, but we know what we have to do.
No, that is 100%. I always think to myself, like, I'm scared, but I'm so fed up that I'm ready.
Aren't you excited? I like, as much as I'm afraid, I am so excited to destroy that part of me. Like,
it's the thing as well is like, it's also, and this is what I was talking to you about the other day, was that there's also that part of you that's like scared to be without it because you're so used to it, but it's like, no, fuck that. Like, get away from me.
The sad truth is even though this is probably going to be the greatest fight of our lives, there's other challenges out there that we're not even really thinking about. Like, you know, what's it like to have a job after never, you know, leaving your house for so long? There's a whole other world of problems out there. But I you know, even still, I do believe that, you know, your battle with yourself is your greatest one.
Yeah. I think honestly, like, overcoming something like this, you would be able to face
anything,
any challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, it's about reminding yourself as well, like, and that was something that I was doing last night when I was in a bit of a panic, was like, I've got through this before. And that's a very scary thing to tell yourself, because you don't 100% believe it. You almost feel as if you're taunting your anxiety by saying that. But when you start to believe it in yourself, that you can control yourself and that you will be okay, because your brain always goes to the negative, honestly. Even people that don't really deal with those mental struggles, the what ifs are never positive. And it's about like challenging yourself to do that, to get into the habit of being like, oh, what if I go outside and I panic, or what if I do this and it makes me panic? And it's like, what if I go out and I don't panic? What if I do this and I don't panic? What if the anxiety doesn't come in at all? What if I don't let it? You know, it's you're having to almost rewire your brain. But as we've seen, there are many people that do it. There's many people that have overcome. That's one of the things that has been really important to me from finding other people that have been through it, and finding like the group and stuff like that, because for so long I felt like I was just one of maybe three other people. But seeing that there had been individuals that were completely housebound, and now they're updating their Facebook to be like, I'm going on a drive, I'm going on holiday, you know, it's such an important thing to see that other people can do it and you're going to be able to do it. And there's also like a bit of self-deprecation and be like, and it's kind of a funny way of looking at it, but I often think to myself, what makes you think that you're so special that you're going to be the only person that's going to be completely housebound and never get through it? You
Yeah.
know, it's like what makes you think that you're so special that you can't face your problems and all that kind of stuff? It's it's like you just have to sort of change your way of thinking, whether that's positive or whether that's sort of having a laugh about it and having a laugh at yourself, you know.
I think the biggest thing is that, like, we feel safe right now. Our safe people are at home or at our house. Our bodies feel completely fine, most likely, I'm assuming for you, but mine does. And, you know, if I were to walk 5 minutes away from my house, there's nothing in my body that's changing at all. It is completely and only my thoughts. And if I can create a situation where my body is my safe place, then yeah, I do think we would be unstoppable.
And being safe with yourself, because I feel like that's an important thing to remember as well, is like, you are the one that controls yourself, you are the one that gets out of it, you're always in control. It's hard to tell yourself that in the moment, of course, like, it's so terrifying, and to anybody that's never experienced it, they'll never know how scary it is. But for me, even when I think of like the physical symptoms, like, okay, your legs might feel like jelly, your legs might get shaky, you can sit down. If you get so nervous that you throw up, that's fine. Like, your body's getting rid of anything negative that's in your body. Like, oh, if you hyperventilate, you pass out, that's a nap. You know, it's about like trying to like take away all those scary things and being like, do you know what? I feel like nothing's real right now, but it still is. I'm still here. You know, I've felt this before and I've got through it, and it's hard to tell yourself in that moment. But it's about practice, and that's what I'm starting to do, is all the things that I'm saying right now, because to be in fear all the time is so exhausting. And it's to have that feeling of the anxiety, being in control all the time, it's not a good way to live. You should want to live your life, and you have to have that fight, and we have that fight. So it's about putting it into play, and stop running from yourself or from the issue, because the only way to tackle your problems is to get them. And if you're at rock bottom, guess what? The only way is up.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, you've got to have hope, and I think that's something that can be so challenging, is to have hope. You know, it's such a basic thing, but without it, I mean, we would still be at that point where we were restricted to just a room. You know, there was that point where I was like, what's the point? I was like, what is absolutely the point? Like, this is the situation I'm in, so this is one that I'm clearly supposed to be in, and nothing's going to get better. And do you know what happened? I was just depressed in a dark place all the time, and that's not good. That's not good. That's not living your life. That's not helping yourself or anyone else. You have to think about the people that are around you. You have to think for yourself, and you have to want more, and you have to believe that you're going to be able to achieve more, you're going to be able to do more. And the only way that you're going to be able to go to your goals is by having that hope and training yourself to be positive. You know, I've spoke to so many people that that have issues with themselves, like their physical appearance. That's such a big thing, especially now. Everyone's insecure and all that stuff. And I'm like, you need to look in the mirror and find one thing that you love about yourself, and you have to focus on it. You know, if you're starting to train yourself to love yourself, you have to tell yourself, you have to get comfortable with saying, like, I'm a good person, this is the things that I can do, these are the skills that I have, this is what I like physically about myself, this is what I can bring to someone. And it's the same with dealing with the agoraphobia and with the anxiety and with the depression. It's like you have to be like, I'm in control, I can do this, I want more for myself, and I'm going to get more for myself. Because if you go in with a self-defeating attitude, you're not going to get anything done. You're not going to get anything sorted. You have to be the person that believes in yourself, because that's going to make it so that other people believe in you, and that's how you're going to do it.
I agree. It almost feels like a movie. Like, before the hero wins in the end, he always gets knocked down and gets into a really dark place, and that's where we are right now. We're there before the fight of our lives, and if you've ever seen a good movie, they make you cry, they make you cheer, and I've said this before. Last year I beat anxiety, and everywhere I went, I was crying happy tears. I was able to go camping. Like, it's an amazing feeling, and I hate that I've fallen back down, but I know I can do it. I know that there is a path, and if there's anybody out there that's just figuring this out or doing the Googling or whatever, do you have any advice for people like that are just discovering agoraphobia for the first time, potentially how to not let it get this bad?
I would say, with like with any condition, with any disorder, with any, well, not with any disorder, obviously it's all different, but something like this where it can progressively get worse, catching on early is one of the best things that you can do. And when you understand that you have that problem, I mean, that's even the same for like drug addiction and stuff like that. When you recognize the problem, it's about getting everything in motion as soon as you can. Because, and agoraphobia, it's an anxiety based thing, and anxiety is all about like habit and avoidance and all that kind of stuff. And it's just about like, learn what's happening to you, learn the physical sensations, kind of like know what's happening with you mentally, understand the terminology, do your own research and stuff, and then remind yourself of that. But you have to like just push yourself, you know. If I was with someone who was just starting to stay in more and wasn't wanting to go out, I'd be like, no, 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 you got to push yourself. You've got to keep going, because the hurdles, especially at the start, they're significantly a lot smaller, because it's not 10 years into it, like the way that I am. When you're starting off at the beginning, the hurdles seem huge, but you've got to do it, because you just think to yourself like, oh, there's only a few places that I can't go. No, you absolutely can, and you have to, because it just restricts more and more and more if you don't be on top of it. I think consistency is key. I think having a good support system is really important. If you don't, if you don't have a lot of friends or family, having that support system in yourself is something that's really important as well. Because I mean, you can have all the best help in the world, you can have the best family, the best friends that are always there for you, but if you're not willing to help yourself, you're not gonna do anything. So having trust in yourself and belief in yourself and hope and being strong is gonna help you a lot. And as I said, like, if you're going to counselling, if you're going to therapy, make sure that it's someone that can actually help you, someone that's listening to you, that's paying attention to your wants and needs. I think being open and honest with other people is another thing that can really help. Talking about your issues, or getting through them in a creative way. Like drawing or writing or whatever it is. But definitely research is important. understanding what's going on with you, because then your rational thoughts are more powerful than the irrational.
I think, challenging your inner hero, keeping the hope, and pushing through. But another thing you can do is, because obviously if you're listening to this, then you probably know one of us. You can talk to us, because we're home all day, and we would love to talk to you. If you're feeling anxious or scared, that's literally almost all I do all day, because I'm, distracting from my own fears. But
Yeah.
reach out. There are people just like you that need help. And Chelsea, I don't know if you have anything else, but that's all I got for me.
I don't know. I feel like I'm
Final
just
word?
rambling.
Any final word? No, you can ramble. We can go for another hour. We can go for another 2 seconds.
No,
Completely
I've
up
just
to
spent
you.
this whole time rambling.
Hey, that's what it's about. It's what it's supposed to be.
Oh god, it's gonna get to that point where I'm gonna overthink everything. I feel like, oh no, I shouldn't have said that. But I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But I'd say maybe if you are in a situation where you're dealing with these sort of issues, don't lie. Don't lie to yourself, and don't lie to other people. I would say is an important thing as well. Just being open and honest, and I think another big thing is, like, when a lot of times you'll find yourself using excuses, especially when it's with loved ones that want to see you progress and want to see you do better. Don't lie to them, don't use excuses of like, oh, I'm just feeling a bit sick. If you're not feeling sick, you're feeling anxious. Feel anxious, tell them that you're feeling that way. And I think, if just being honest with yourself as well, like, and admitting that you have this problem, or you have whatever that you're going through, it's why I always say that, like, addiction is part of mental health as well, although I'm fortunate enough I don't suffer with anything like that. Once you admit that you have that problem, and you admit it to the people that are around you as well, and you wear it proudly, and you're not ashamed of what you go through, that's going to be a really big help as well for your progress. But it's not easy. But the first time that you do it, even if you do it as just like a joke, like I would always say to people, like, oh yeah, basically if I try and go out, I'm gonna freak out and my head's gonna turn all the way around like I'm in The Exorcist and stuff like that. Like, you'll find ways to wear your issues proudly as you overcome them, I think, is an important thing. And if you're, like, meeting with new friends for the first time, or like you're getting into a relationship with someone that you just met, like, don't lie and be like, oh yeah, I'll meet you out somewhere and stuff if you can't do it. Always be open about your circumstances, and with the full understanding that everyone else has faced some sort of mess in their life. I think is a really important thing as well. Is just don't be ashamed. Wear everything, and want better for yourself and for those that are around you.
Positive thoughts, positive things.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you've got. That's all you can do.
So I was sitting here. I just had this last thought. It's sort of, I don't know if it's a saying or whatever, but that love is the most powerful emotion that there is. And, hate is almost equally as powerful, but love conquers all. And I was sitting here thinking, like, how big the fear is. It's completely overwhelming. It's this giant monster, and the more you avoid it, the bigger it gets, and it feels like it's, a completely unstoppable force. But having been on the other side of it, or beaten it before, that bliss that you feel when you feel confident and brave and you conquer it, the other side, the courage, the opposite of fear, it's so much bigger. It's one of the best feelings you can ever imagine. So don't give up. Keep the hope. push through.
Because once you get that taste of success, when you have completely crossed that first hurdle, it's going to feel so good, and you're going to want more of it. That's definitely something, I mean, that we've experienced, and I know that that's something that we're looking forward to as well, is getting those success moments again. You'll be so proud of yourself as well. And you know, that can be a kind of weird thing to feel, you know, to feel proud of yourself, and to be like, oh, I've accomplished something today. Oh, it's probably not that special. No, it is. It's the beginning, and you're going to feel so much more of that, and it's going to be so much better than any depressing feelings or any sad feelings. Like, the pursuit of happiness is a good one. It's not a one that's wasted.
Well, I'm excited to see pictures of you at the store very soon, Chelsea.
No,
you're gonna make it.
I'm really looking forward to it as well.
I want to see pictures of you eating dinner with your boyfriend at a restaurant. It's gonna happen.
I know. I've got so many goals, you know, being able to go down and see. I've got so many nieces and nephews, so going down and seeing them, my brother and sister, my family, going out with my dad, being able to go to the shops for him.
You're gonna show up at their Christmas and have gifts for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna do it all.
Just living life normal. That's all it is. Getting that normality back, and being able to, like, I don't know, save my boyfriend the journey of coming all the way up here. Me going down to him for once. It's the little things, and I think that's something that agoraphobia makes you so much more grateful for freedom in general.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be great for both of us.
Well, I believe in you. I think you're halfway there. We're just, you know, sitting around waiting to have the fight, but it's coming.
No, we've got it. We're going to fucking do it. I've said to someone before, if I'm going up, I'm taking these all with me. It's usually the opposite. But yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Alright, guys. Is that it for you? You got anything else?
No, I've probably already embarrassed myself and said too much and just rambled, so.
Sounds good.